Okay, here we go with another attempt to do a live stream. So let's get right into it here. We are going to look at some of the migrations into America, some of the earlier migrations into America. So let's get right into it. So I'm going to start out with the R haplogroup because it requires a lot of loading of information, and you have to wait a long time to get the information to come up. So here we have an R haplogroup, which is the L389, which goes back, these lineages go back 5,100 years. So this is not the real ancient lineage that goes to America, because the real ancient ones go back 10,000 years. But this would be like the Mediterranean travel, Southern European Mediterranean travel that ended up mostly in the Great Lakes region. And we see our little culprit right here, right in the middle of the North America. But we also see another lineage that looks like it traveled down the Silk Road, this blue lineage, and ended up in America as well, 5,000 or around 3,000 years ago, right about the days of King Solomon. So I don't know if they had communication with each other, but they did reach the same place going two different routes. So, like I said, the one in the center here is our culprit, where there's very, very, very many people. Maybe we'll just take a look at that real quick. So we'll just zoom in a little bit. Of course, this is the Y chromosome. And so it's the samples of some of the sons of the original ancient civilizations. This one being Ripfath, the son of Gomer, the son of Japheth, the son of Noah. So we'll zoom in here just for the fun of it. And we're going to go forward in time and see what happens here in our place here, if it'll cooperate. We're going forward in time. There we go, forward in time. 3,300 years ago. And it's starting to bind out. 2,400 years ago. We'll just go ahead and wait till it finishes filling out. But anyways, so this is kind of a hard to understand why they would have so many samples of DNA, because these are all individual samples of DNA. And at first I thought it was a burial ground of some kind where they had all these people, but it's just way, way too many people in one place for it to be, for them to all be found in this one location. But anyway, it's probably going to take its time now. I'm going to probably have to wait a little bit for it to fill out. But hopefully it won't take too long to go ahead and fill out. It's almost there, 400 years ago. 400 years, and then up to today will be next. And if it's a burial ground, it wouldn't have lineages from today anyways. But anyway, let's just go ahead and double check over here. See if anything going on there. Not a whole lot yet. So this is the some of the lineages, and I would like to get to some of the other ones. The R, of course, is the R lineages are huge populations, which is why it takes so long to load the information. But as soon as this gets done, we can go ahead and try to get another one. Okay, there we go. So then we'll look at the G. We'll go ahead and look at the G. Again, if it'll cooperate. G. And well, hopefully this is not going to work okay. We're not going to have to select a specific one and see how many lineages and when they come over to America for the G haplogroup, which would be the descendants of Asher or Assyrians, which became part of the Jewish population and became part of the Phoenicians as well. And again, the Phoenician signature or DNA signature is similar to that of the Jewish DNA signature because, of course, they're both Mediterranean. So they do tend to have a lot of the same or most of the same haplogroups. One of them being Assyrian because every time Israel was expelled to the north, they were expelled to Assyria, and this pretty much accounts for why the G is in the Jewish population. Besides the fact that when Abraham went to Israel, he probably took with him people who were from Assyria as well, which could also be the case. So this is still the R haplogroup. And as you can see, it's a little bit crowded. So I guess they just put them all to one location. And you have to investigate for yourself to see how many samples there are in that location because it looks like just one individual, but that one individual turns out to be many different individuals or samples. So the ages of which are, questionable. I mean, I suppose they're lineages of people today as well, because of course R1B is, been migrating to America for a long time. And I don't know why it's taking so long for G to load. Probably because I had the R in there. But anyways, the other another haplogroup would be the T haplogroup of the descendants of Javan, which would be Elisha, Dodanim, and Kittim, Elisha, Dodanim, Kittim, and Tubal, and Tarshish, I mean. So these all have the T haplogroup, which are also Mediterranean, which are also in the Jewish population, especially in uh, the population in Portugal, the group in Portugal. There's one group that doesn't have the T. There's another group that has about maybe 14% of the T in their population. So we'll go ahead and See if we can get the lineages going with the G in America. This same place, of course, and we'll see how old they are. So we'll put the samples in, and not just the lineage, but also the individual samples that they found, and then we'll see how old they are. Because the R lineages were only going back 5,000 years, because of course that Mediterranean travel happened much later in time than when the Medes crossed over from Africa to Central America. Because when the Medes crossed over from Africa to Central America was at a much older date. It was ancient times, and the R haplogroup was in the days of King Solomon, which is much later, or still ancient to us, but only about 3,000 years ago instead of near 4,000 years ago, or 4,000 something years ago. Okay, so now we have the samples. This is all of G basically, so we'll go ahead and back out here and see how many of there are. It's not a whole lot. Well, it's quite a bit when you consider all of them. But of course, we'll have to go back in time and see how many are from ancient times. So we'll go ahead and slide the age back a little bit. It'll cooperate a little bit. 600 years, 5,000 years, 8,000 years, 9,000 years, 10,000 years, 10,200 years. So they have a sample in North America that's 10,000 years old. So this G haplogroup may have crossed over with the Medes. So when the Medes went through the Mediterranean, of course, the Medes conquered all the way to Libya. I mean, not Libya, Lydia. And they made a truce with the Lydians. When that happened, there was another lineage of the Medes along with the mitochondrial lineages of A, C, and D. So it's 4 lineages that crossed at that time when the Medes encountered the Lydians. And this might be one of the other lineages that crossed with them, because it's a G haplogroup, which is a Syrian, and it goes back almost, well, it was 10,000. I think it was 10,000 years. Yeah, it was 10,000 years, which is in reality closer to 5,000 or 4,500, 4,000 something rather. 4,000, yeah, probably 4,000 years around that time. So you cut it in half, and it's closer to where the real age is, because that coincides with the events that were taking place. So again, the other ones, what, like 2,500 years? That's closer to the age when, in the days of King Solomon, when the Phoenicians crossed over into America. Of course, the Phoenicians, that would be the R1B, and a lot of this G as well. Some more of this G, so we'll go forward in time, see what we have with the G. We'll go in about 5,000 years, 4,000, 5,000. Then we have more G of the Assyrians in the area. So, and the other one would be the T haplogroup. The other one that's in the Phoenician population would be the T haplogroup. And I don't think that doesn't go as old as the G does. But the T did cross over apparently with the Phoenicians. They're a part of the Phoenicians. In fact, the T is representative of the Mediterranean Sea people, which made up part of the Phoenicians when the Phoenicians crossed over from the Mediterranean to America. So this T might not be as old as the G, but they still have lineages that are in America, going back maybe 5,000 years ago, according to their ages, which is more like 2,500. There is 5,400, and notice it's both in North America and South America. 4,500 years, which is probably around 2,500 years, would be closer to the actual age when they went to America. But I don't think they're any older. Yeah, it's 7,900. That's still pretty old. But you never know. I mean, depending on the dating method, whether how accurate the dating method is too. Maybe it did cross over when the Medes came over. It's hard to say, but at any rate, it's an early travel. It's an early lineage in America. It's one of the ones, and we'll just take a couple random ones. We'll go with the B haplogroup, which is a descendant of Cush, and see how that goes. Probably should load okay. So this B haplogroup is a descendant of Cush, but they were in the time of the Phoenicians, they were in the Mediterranean as well, and they seem to have crossed over at the time of the Mediterranean crossing as well. So we're going back in time. We got 4,300 years. Yeah, 4,000, 5,000 years ago. So let's cut that in half, about 2,500 years ago. So about 500 BC. I suppose that would be about the time of the Mediterranean crossing. At least it's more accurate than 5,000 years ago. So that's the B. So let's go to the mitochondrial and just investigate some lineages there, just to make sure we cover all the bases. We know the A was there. We know the C was there in America, and we know the D was in America. They all crossed over into America when the Medes encountered the Lydians. There was a lineage or a group of Medes that went through the Mediterranean off the coast of Africa to Central America, and we've already investigated that. And there's a video on that where they spread out all those four haplogroups spread out in America, going back way back to the time of the Medes. So let's look now for a couple of mitochondrial lineages. Let's say uh, let's see, G. I don't know if there's a G. Is there a G? I forget. Forgot to get the picture up here. But yeah, we'll go with a G. See how that goes. And there's an E. And I think there's even an X. This is a mitochondrial. This is a Eurasian mitochondrial lineage. So it'd be the daughters of Japheth. So it'd be a lineage of the daughters of Japheth and their migrations. And we see that they did cross over into America in that same location. As a matter of fact, the same location as in Central America where all the other ones are found. And so let's go back and see how far. So this would be a crossing. Apparently, it's a crossing. It just kind of jumps. Some of them pretty much have to have crossed through the Bering Strait, the Beringa, what they call it, Beringia or whatever. Bering Strait. So I go back in time, 2007, 3,000, 4,000, there's 4,000, 5,000, 6,000, 7,000, 8,000, 9,000, 10,000 years. So 10,000 years, the lineage from 10,000 years is already in America. But this one is rather suspicious because of the fact that it comes out of Asia, but comes out of Central Asia, which could have been, because the farther back you go in time, the more people were located near Mesopotamia. For example, the Medes came out of Asia with Asian DNA, the D and the C, and now we see the G as well. So this G is also Asian, and it looks like it crossed over with the Medes into America the same way. But they have it going through Alaska or Beringia, whatever they call it, instead of crossing through the Atlantic. But I suppose it could have gone that way. Some of it did, but this G4 crosses at a later date through the Bering Strait. But this early crossing, to me, could have been with the Medes, which all these haplogroups, these Asian haplogroups, would have been farther to the west, closer to Mesopotamia, especially when the Medes went up to the Lydians in Anatolia. At that time, that's the time when they crossed through the Mediterranean to Central America. So that could be when this G haplogroup crossed 10,000 years ago, or actually more closer to 5,000, which of course would be probably closer to 4,000 years ago in order to be accurate dating. So that's the G. And of course, it's in the same conspicuous spot in the center of North America. As we saw previously, we'll go ahead and go forward in time again and watch these haplogroups develop. There's more. There's some G4 over there crossing over to the to the center of America for some reason. Now it's all the way up on the east coast of the east coast of America as well. But yeah, a little bit conspicuous there. So we'll go ahead with the E now. And I think there's a Z too, but we'll go with the E and see how that. And this is a mitochondrial lineage is very early on, at least that one was in this Eurasian mitochondrial lineages would be the daughters of Japheth. That this that G was especially conspicuously close to where the Medes were. But this is the E, and we have a crossing of the E as well. So this is the Eurasian mitochondrial E crossing over, it looks like through Alaska. So we'll go back in time, see how old it is. 5,000. See, it's not as old. Not as old. Maybe 5,000. It's 4,300, 4,500. That's it. 4,500 years. So this crossing through Alaska is usually more recent than the crossing that was across the Atlantic when the Medes crossed all the way to America. Of course, they may have had more information, and I don't want to say that the continents were closer together, but they may have known of the division of the continents and been aware of the dividing of the earth, as the Bible says. And they may have known that North and South America were here, or there was land that separated from Africa. They may have even known that at the time. So we'll go to Z. Let's see what Z shows here. This again would be the Eurasian mitochondrial descendants of Japheth. And these are kind of obscure lineages too, and yet they're in America fairly early on. Some of them, at least the G was fairly early on. I mean, the time of the Medes, that's when the Medes crossed over, that's early. So now we have the Z. I don't know if we have a crossing of the Z. Yes, we do have a crossing, but don't know how old it is. The crossing is. We'll see. Looks like it crossed through, or maybe, it's hard to say. Like I said, all these haplogroups would have been closer. Oh, this is going way back. 8,000, 9,000, 10,000 years. Yeah, so this lineage could, like I said, all these haplogroups would have been, the farther you go back in time, the more these haplogroups would have been to the west, closer to Mesopotamia, where the Medes were. And of course, it's Eurasian, and the Medes came straight out of Asia. So it looks like this Z crossed with the Medes as well. And of course, this is information that they have found. This is not all the information. that exist or that might be found. This is just one example of a sample going back 10,000 years, which was the time of the Medes cross from North Africa to Central America and spread out from there. So that's another Eurasian haplogroup that goes back 10,000 years according to their estimation, which is more like just over 4,000 years in real life. So that's very interesting. Let's see what we have here. Anything going on? Not a whole lot going on here. Unless maybe I might, yeah, I'm going to have to, probably won't see who's here. Yeah, somebody's here. There we go. We got some few people here. We got David, USA, Shabbat Shalom. We have Brother Timothy, his blessings. Okay. I think the lineages were here in the days of Peleg when the earth was divided. Yeah, that's, I would hesitate to say that they were there in the days of Peleg because they were still building the Tower of Babel for the first 100 years. First 100 years, they were all sticking together. They didn't separate until after the earth was divided. Then they separated. I think that's the way it would have been. If not, North America would have been uninhabited for hundreds of years. It was uninhabited for 100 years at least, because it was 100 years till Peleg was born. So in the days of Peleg, the earth was divided, and it even affected the lifespan of Peleg. So it may have been, whatever it was a catastrophic event, almost like a second catastrophic event after the global flood, which cut the lifespan in half a second time. And then the lifespans dropped from there. Archaeology suggests people have always been here. It goes way back in time, but for the first 100 years, they were all building the Tower of Babel, speaking one language, and they were afraid to separate. They were afraid to spread out. But the animals did cross over from Africa to South America. And well, Africa was connected to North America and South America at the same time as well. Just speculation. Let's see what we got. David says D4H3 is Native American. That's D, yeah. D is in America. Q, 1A, 2A, and Q, 1A, 2A1 are Y of Native Americans. That's another one we should look at is D. Well, we already did. Yeah. D is already, especially in South America. Yeah, we already looked at C and D. Okay. Oyo Negro from Yucatan Peninsula over Mexico is D1. Yeah. Yeah, D is definitely in Central America and South America especially, because that's where they landed. They found it's not human, it's located, it is location of Mexico. They found D1. D is a haplogroup of it's a haplogroup of the daughters of Japheth, as far as I can tell, as far as I know. Do you believe there's a possibility there was 10 lost tribes of Israel in the Native American bloodlines today? There were some, but it was because of Phoenician travel. It's mostly because of Phoenician travel that the I-1 and I-2 and J-1 and J-2 went to America. But we can double check on that too. Do you believe there's possibilities 10 lost tribes? And some of them some of them were of course tribes of Israel, but they weren't the quote unquote 10 lost tribes. They were just people who were from various tribes in America. So we might as well let's go ahead and look at that and see when they crossed over. So that would be interesting too. So we have to go back to the Y haplogroup. So we'll go back to the Y haplogroup here. And we're going to check the I-1, I-2, which is the tribe of Dan and Asher, and the J-1 and the J-2, which would be the rest of the tribes of Israel and possibly Arabic or otherwise Hebrew. So let's go to the I-1, see what happens. So go to I-1 in America, see what time they crossed over into America. Because I'm pretty sure that goes back 5,000 years. I don't think it goes back 10,000 years with the Medes when the Medes crossed over, but we have to double check on that to see when they crossed over. Because they're found in that same location in Central America as well. So this is the I-1. Of course, these Y haplogroups that I'm looking at are ones that are in Native American populations, Native American people. And of course, when Native American people take a DNA test, it comes back Mediterranean, and people are scratching their heads wondering why. But when you know the history, and you follow the DNA, you know why. Anyway, so this I-1 is pretty big. Maybe I should have picked a specific lineage of Y1, but it should fill out here before too long. And we'll go back in time and see when they first came to America. So, these dates are interesting. I mean, they believe that they go back, you know, 10,000 years, but they really don't go back that far. They're just a little off on their dating method. Usually about twice as old as what it actually is, more or less. Okay, so now we have the sons of that would be Dan, the sons of Dan. So we'll go ahead and go back in time and see when they crossed over into America. Oops, I have to wait a little bit more. Okay, see if we can center this a little bit better. Uh, still working on something, I guess. Let's see if I can move it. So these are all, if that's correct, and there's no other tribes in the lineage, because I-1 seems to be one single lineage. As you can see, there's just basically one single lineage here. And it seems to be the movements of the tribe of Dan. And the I too seems to be the movements of the tribe of Asher. Okay, if we can get it to center, and then we can go back in time, can find out when they arrived in America, which is, I don't know, maybe the computer's slowing down. I don't know. Sometimes it gets bogged down. But once we can get it to center, then we can go back in time, or we'll just go ahead and go back in time a little bit, see what happens. And we just have to wait. I have to wait for it to do it. Okay, well, let's see if there's anything else here to look at, consider. Okay, we got Babylon conquered Assyria. God gathered them all back up then. It was Babylon and the Medes, I think, conquered Assyria. I think because Assyria needed help to conquer, and I think it was Babylon that helped them conquer Assyria. And then they went up against Lydia, and they had to make a truce with Lydia. But that was the time of the first crossing over into Central America. Also, many went south before captivity in Assyria. Yeah, there's a lot of J1 that went south, a lot. And of course, J1, as a matter of fact, it's the Cohen modal haplotype that went south. It's more than the J2. So the Cohen modal haplotype a lot of them went south, whereas the J2 mostly went north. So if Jacob is JY DNA, and J1 or J2 are the populations of the son of Jacob, how would you explain the haplotype is part of Israel? Well, J1, P58 is the Cohen modal haplotype. J2 is pretty much Judaic and or other tribes of Israel. J1 is where the Arabic people branch off from the IJ lineage. Of course, the IJ lineage is being the lineage of Abraham, pretty much. Maybe some other Hebrews, but the I1 seems to be Dan, I2 seems to be Asher, J1P58 is the Cohen modal haplotype. Who knows what other tribes of Israel and or Arabic, and J2 is mostly Judaic. Okay, that's what it seems to me to be. Since there are huge gaps between timelines over separation from J and I. Well, according to their estimation, there's a huge timeline of the separation, but then again, their dating method is like twice as old as what it should be, and I don't believe that such a huge separation. It's just mostly a separation of distance rather than time. Solomon had 700 wives from all over the known world. His DNA scattered all over the world, which is J2. So the house of David and Solomon is mostly, I believe, J2 M172. So the M172 then branches off in two lineages, which could be the lineages of David and Solomon. So, but it's the house of David is probably J1 M172, and the rest would be Judaic or other Israelite tribes. So we can go back over here maybe. See if this is going to operate, or did it freeze up? I'm going to have to refresh it. Yeah, I'm probably going to have to refresh the thing. Or, oh, there, now it's working. Okay, it's centering. Okay, so we'll go back in time now. Go back in time, see when I-1 arrived in America. This is 600 years. A little bit slow. I might have to restart it. The thing. I mean, the browser or whatever. It's working though. Sort of. It's, we got 3,000 years. We got 3,800 years. Looks like 3,800 years, 3,900 years is the oldest one. 3,900 years for when they apparently came to America. Of course, this being what they have found, it's what they have found. The samples they have found. It's not what they haven't found, but it does go back pretty much almost to the days of King Solomon. But then again, of course, this could be Viking migrations as well, even though it does seem to, it's hard to say where the lineages are coming from. Let's just see. Zoom in. Yeah, it's basically coming from the area of the Vikings and the Anglo-Saxons. So I don't know if that's representative of the Phoenician travel or not, but then of course the Phoenician travel came over here into the Great Lakes region. That's where the Phoenician travel went. So maybe it could be representative of that. Some of it, anyways. So let's go ahead and go to the I-2. So we'll go I-2 and see what's going on with that. Lineage would be the tribe of Asher, possibly someone else, but again, I think it's seems to be pretty much single lineage, because you can see here with this I-1 is that it doesn't separate into a whole bunch of different lineages. It's pretty much just one lineage. Of course, I could show you my lineage. It doesn't quite reach Scandinavia or anywhere, but anyways, we'll just go ahead and keep looking at the I-2. Got the I-2, which is basically very similar to the I-1 as far as the crossing. Could be Scandinavian, I suppose, but then again, that could have been part of the Phoenician travel as well. Of course, these lineages were all in the Mediterranean as well. Let's go back in time and see. Well, let's try to center this a little bit better, or zoom out. I lost my cursor. Where'd my cursor go? Let's try to zoom out. Go wait. See if it froze. Guess it froze. Zoom out. Don't want to give it too many instructions. See if it'll zoom out a bit. In Southern Europe, Northern Europe, and they seem to see how they're in the Mediterranean. They seem to follow the movements of the tribes of Dan and Asher, who were seafaring people in the Mediterranean and who became part of the Phoenicians. But then again, J1 and J2 also cross over in about the same time as well. So, I guess this is taking a little while. Well, I must have clicked. I clicked on a single lineage. Is what I did. So, I'm gonna have to go back and see if I can fill it in. Well, it's I2. Let's see, I2. Where's I2? I should find a lineage that's just one, but well, looks like it might take a little while longer because I clicked on one of these squares apparently. So that's I don't know what kind of lineage that is, but anyway, I go back over here. We'll just try one, see how far back this goes. Okay, it goes back 3,800 years. See if it'll work. 4,900, 5,000. So this one, I2 does go back 5,000 years. 5,200, 5,100, 600, 5,600 years. 5,600 years in America. The I2. So we'll go to the J1. J1, of course, could be Arabic. It could be Israel as well. Oops, wrong one. J. So J1. Crossing over into America when they went to America. So since see this 5,000 years is basically you cut that in half, 2,500. That's basically the days of King Solomon. But if you go back 10,000 years, that would be when the Medes would be more of the time the Medes crossed over into America very early on, because we know that people were in America very, very early on. So this is J1. Notice how the J1, which is mostly J1P58, went south. North. Okay, there's J1. We'll go back in time. Okay, 4,000. Well, probably need some sample representatives. Okay, go back in time. 4,000 years are in North America. I mean, New England, whatever. 4,600. 4,600. Oh, 4,000 years. Okay, so that's basically going back 4,000 years. 300. 4,300 years. So that's pretty much the same as I1 and I1. I2 seem to go back a little farther again because it's not all the information, it's some of the information that does exist. So we can only go by what the information that does exist, which goes back pretty much to the days of King Solomon. That's J1. We'll go to J2. And of course, there was the R1B, goes back about the same age, if I'm not mistaken. Or maybe there was some that went older. I don't know. So we'll go to the J2 now, which would be probably J2 M172, which would be the house of David in the days of King Solomon. So let's go ahead and hit the lineages. Notice how J2 is more to the north. And we'll go back in time if we can. 4,400. Now, J2 does go back 4,400 years. It's actually 5,000 right there. But anyways, we'll go ahead and put the descendants in, the samples in, and we're back 7,000, 8,000. This is back 10,000 years. So I guess it's a possibility that some of J2 crossed over with the Medes because they go into apparently they go into South America too, right? But they seem to go back way back in time. They're in Central America, 6,700 years. They're in Central or South America, Central South America, whatever. 7,000 years ago. So yeah, these dates go back farther in time with the J2, which is probably mostly M172 would be the house of David, descendants of David and Solomon. So they go back way pretty far back in time, even 10,000 years. There's 10,900 years right there. So that's how old the lineage is. Okay, so let's see what else we have going on. See if Jacob is J's and his sons are J's, how would E1B1, G, I1, I12 before J's coming as sons of Israel? the G's are Assyrian. The E's are Egyptian, more than likely, and the I1 and I2 are branch off from J. So the I1 and I2 belong to the IJ lineage. The G doesn't belong to the IJ lineage. It's the G's are Assyrian. So there's, if you go backwards in order, it's F, G, H, I. So the H is the Elamites, G is the Assyrians, F is the Lydians, and the Arameans. And the Arameans go all the way. Arameans and probably the Lydians too go all the way to India very, very early when the Arameans were running around. They controlled. They didn't like defeat a whole lot of people, but they controlled the trade routes all the way to India and probably as far as China. So the E and the G are not descendants of Arpachshad. They're other Semit. Well, G is Semitic Assyrians, and E is Hamitic uh, Egyptians. But they are in the Jewish population. They are autosomally they're mixed with the Jewish population. So if there's a Jewish person that Albert Einstein was an E. Albert Einstein is an E, and he's Jewish, autosomally, because he's mixed with the Jewish population. G was mixed with the Jewish population. I mean, not all G's are Jewish, but the G's that are mixed with Jewish people, they're autosomally they're Jewish because they're mixed with the Jewish population. So it's kind of complicated, not too bad, really. Good morning, brother. There's Calvi. Oh, and we got haven't finished listening to Hippolytus reading. That's just good stuff. Okay. Amazing how much he mirrors Arrhenius. I have read Against Heresies. Okay. Okay, I'm looking to finish recording the book 5 this morning. He totally talks about an ancient form of Kundalinis, serpent spirits. Some think he was a student of Arrhenius. Arrhenius tells us who the Nicolaitans were. Okay. So it's not too bad. We went through some mitochondrial DNA. We went through Y chromosome DNA of the early crossings over into America. This one here being Judaic, and it's 10,900 years old in America. I was thinking about the eye. The eye mitochondrial lineage seems to be its own lineage. Let me just look at the eye mitochondrial lineage. See, because I think it goes to America too, but it's a Semitic lineage. another lineage, well, that became part of the Medes as well, it seems, because I think it's in Europe, if I'm not mistaken. We'll look at the I. Uh, but of course, the ordinary lineages in America are A, C, and D. And some of these obscure lineages are also in America early on, but they're not as common, of course. But they still, some of them still probably cross with the Medes. When the Medes crossed over from the coast of Africa to Central America. And this might be one example of that, depending on how old it goes back in time, right? But I'm just curious about the I lineage because it's a more kind of an obscure lineage. It's not as common or well known, and it goes back 3,600, 6,000. Yeah, this goes way back. 8,000. Let's see what it comes over. 7,000, 8,000, 8,900. Yeah, 8,900 years. The islandages in America. So I'm thinking that could have crossed over with the Medes when the Medes came, because it's Eurasian. It's a daughter of no. It's actually a no. It's a Semitic lineage, but it's I don't know. I think it. I have to study up more on the I lineage, but it could have come over with the Medes as well. So the I might have accompanied the X and W, which of course the X and W are are in America early on as well. I mean, no, the X and W may have been the later crossing, but since I don't know if we looked at the X and W, well, we looked at it in another video, but let's see what the X and the W are. We know the X is here, but this is almost 10,000 years. This I lineage, the X lineage, we'll see when it came over, but of course it probably went back over because there's a difference between the X in Europe and the X in America. The difference is in America it's X2A. In Europe, it's X2-A, but it's really the same lineage. It's like the difference between a possum and an opossum. There's just no difference. It's just named differently. It's the same animal. There's no difference. It just has a different name because it's in a different place, and they try to isolate things that way. So yeah, we did this in another video. Put in the daughters in here. And we'll go back in time, see how far back in time it goes. Because this is a European lineage of the daughters of Madai, because the Medes went into Europe as well. So it's 5,000 years, 6,000, 8, 7,000, 9,000, 7,900 8,100 years in America and conspicuously in the Great Lakes region too. So, but anyways, that's even older. But it's clearly an Atlantic crossing though. Either way, but it does go back pretty much in time. Again, their dating methods might be off, might not be accurate, but it's very well known that the X is in America and Europe. They just have them labeled differently. In America, they have them labeled as X2A. In Europe, they're labeled X2-A. For example, if I go to look at this and I put X2A, it's only going to come out in America. If I put X2A, only the lineage in America will come up. But if I put X2-A, then the other lineages will come up. Let me see, where am I going? X2. Oh, yes. It's got to put an X in here. X2 dash A right there. So put the X2 dash A, and the lineage from Europe will be seen going to America. If I put only X2A, only the American lineage will come up, will show up in America. But if I put X2-A, then both the European lineages going to and the American lineages, the European going to America will show up along with American lineages. It's a little tricky. Sometimes you wonder if they're doing it with ulterior motives. But it's like the possum and opossum thing. It's the same animal. They just don't like you to realize that there's a possum in South America and there's a possum in Australia and Asia elsewhere as well. But there you have it. The X2A connects to the lineages in America as well, going back probably the same ages. Well, probably need to put the samples in. That's goes back 8,200, yeah, 8,500 years. So that, of course, is the X in Europe is Semitic lineage that seems to accompany. It's the same. It's connected to the same lineage as A, which went to America as well. But it's more the lineage. It's the same root as A, but it's the X and the W are in Europe, but they're still the daughters of Madai because it's the same root lineage as the A. It's just different place. They label it different haplogroup. So that's the X. We'll look at the W real quick, maybe. So the W, mitochondrial lineage, and see what's going on here. Okay. Revelation. Also, Simonites who followed Simon Magus. Really enjoyed it, Brother Jungle Jargon. Thanks for doing what you do. All for his glory, amen. Amen. What are the mtDNA Semitic lineages? The mtDNA Semitic lineages are everything after N. So if you look at a chart, which I should do, we'll find a chart and a map, and we'll go cover that. Can you show mtDNA's Shem, Ham, Japheth? Yeah. The L's are Hamitic. It's L, M, and N. So the L is Hamitic, M is Eurasian, and N is Semitic. Of course, Japheth had a lot of sons. He didn't have as many daughters, probably. And so what we need to do, let's go try to find here's the W. W is the same kind of thing. Let's see if we can go back in time. Okay, going back in time. And it's going to that same place in the center of the United States. This is what got me, was that all these things going to one place in the center of the United States didn't make any sense to me. There's 8,000. Yeah, this is going way back, 9,000. So this seems to be a lineage that accompanied the Medes, even though it's just in North America, according to that. But yeah, 10,000 years, 11,000 years, 12,900 years, 14,000 years. Yeah, so something might be off with the dating method, but yeah, it goes all the way back 14,400 years. That's as far back as it goes. So there's either something wrong with the dating method, or I don't know, they're not showing all the evidence. Go ahead and click on that. Goes. Okay, now what are we looking for? We'll find a good map here somewhere. That's Haplogroups, Middle East. I can find, here we go. What's this one? This is mtDNA. Yeah, this should work. Okay. So yeah, this W is a Semitic lineage, is the same as the X, but apparently it's an even older lineage. But so in other words, the A separates into the W, the X, and the A goes, well, it goes to America, but recently found out that it crossed the Atlantic instead of crossing the Bering Strait. Both the A, the C, and the D, and the Q paternal haplogroup, they all crossed the Atlantic. 4 lineages crossed the Atlantic into Central America and spread out from there. And that's the majority of the Native American population, with some other migrations in other places, like the B seems to have come across the Pacific, which is another one that we need to look at. Did this thing work or what? Yeah, maybe it will now. There it is. Maybe. Okay, so here we have it. These these are the mitochondrial haplogroups of the world. So we have L1, 2, and 3, 4, 5, and 6 are Hamitic. The M starts the Eurasian lineage, so it's M, C, Z, D, G, E, and Q, because we need to look at Q and M as well. And then the N starts the Semitic lineage. So the Semitic lineage is N, which is Judaic, is in the Jewish population. Then there's the I and the W and the A, which are all connected. And then there's the X, Y, R, and B. The B is a Semitic lineage, of course, but this is the lineage that crossed the Pacific Ocean to America. And then there's the common ones in Europe, which F, I don't know, but it's the H, V, H, and V, and P, and J, and T, and U, and K. These are all Semitic. So what it seems to be, first there's the N, even though the N itself is in the Jewish populations. The I, the W, the A, and the X, well, especially the W, the A, the X, and then there's a Y and the R are all one lineage. Then there's a B, or at least they have a common ancestor, of course, but maybe they're the earlier lineages, I don't know. And then there's a B. When you start the R, that starts another lineage, but it's still Semitic. So these are often Eurasian up here, even though the N is in the Jewish population. Most of these are Eurasian. Once it starts the R lineage, then that becomes Semitic again. I mean, that becomes Middle Eastern Semitic of the Jewish population. And turns out all the way into Europe, 95% of Europe is H, V, H, V, P, J, T, U, and K in Europe. But that's the way it is. And there's other charts that might show it better. I mean, it shows the connections, supposed connection. But the problem is that with the mitochondrial DNA, the out of Africa is debunked because it goes from the L, which is Hamitic, to the M, which is Japhetic or Japhethite, and then it goes to the N, which is Semitic. But in the Y chromosome, it goes from the A, B, C, D, and E to the F, G, H, I, J, which is Semitic. So it goes from Hamitic to Semitic and then to Eurasian. Whereas here, the mitochondria goes from Hamitic to Eurasian, then to Semitic, is what the connections are. So it means that all these lineages existed simultaneously. One didn't produce the other, because you can't have a Hamitic lineage producing Eurasian mitochondrial and Semitic paternal, and then producing Eurasian paternal and Semitic mitochondrial. But anyways, if you look at the where these are found, M, C, Z, D, G, and E are found in Asia, and all these other ones are found in the Middle East, more the Semitic areas, with the exception of the A, which accompanied the Medes because Madai asked to marry one of the daughters of Shem. So this A lineage accompanies the Medes wherever it goes. And there's other charts too we could look at. I don't know if we have time to find them, but it shows the W, the A, the X being splitting off from each other. The I seems to be on its own, and the N seems to be on its own. And then the R starts another, I guess, a later lineage, be the RB and the ones in Europe and the Middle East, of course. So however that works out, that's the way it is. And these are but you can see that the greater diversity is in the Middle East and not in Africa, not in Europe, not in East Asia, not in America. The greater diversity is right here in the Middle East, right here. This is the greater diversity of the haplogroups. That's diversity. That's what you call diversity, which makes sense because everything spreads out from here like spokes of a wheel. Spreads out from the Middle East like spokes of a wheel, obviously, because that's where everybody started out from. So yeah, I don't know how much more we can find here to look at. The other day we found that in Ireland, of course, you have the R, but you also have the IM 223, and the IM 253, which is what I am, and more I as well. And besides that, you have over here the an A lineage, which is A1A or something like that. There's an A1A, which came from Scandinavia, went up to Scandinavia and came back down here to the northern tip of Ireland here. So anyway, okay. See, this is the Y chromosome, of course. So they have the A through E, and then they have the F connected to the Hamitic lineage through the CF and the CT. So this is actually separate. This is what they call the YAP-DE, or which separates the D and the E from the C and the T and the F. So the C shares a marker because of course it has a common ancestor with the F, which is Noah. But that's how they want to connect the out of Africa. But instead of gaining the Semitic marker, it's actually losing the marker going the other way because the Hamitic is the younger son. So you have to root the tree in K. I think you can even root it in the Semitic population too, for that matter. But anyways, it specifically says Ham is the younger. But they want to insist that it's the older, and they want to insist that this lineage, the C lineage, produced the F lineage, but it didn't produce the F lineage. It's just that it has a common ancestor with the F lineage. That's why it shares a marker with the F lineage, because it has a common ancestor. Same thing with the IJK lineage. IJ didn't produce K. So you have GHIJK. it didn't produce K, it just has a common ancestor with K. It's the same thing. They want to say that the IJ produced K. No, it didn't produce K, it just has a common ancestor with K. But IJ, being the oldest Semitic lineage, can share a marker with his uncle. So, in other words, Arpachshad, who is the grandson, can share a marker with his uncle Japheth because he's the oldest son of Shem, the IJ lineage, which is confirmed to be of Arpachshad because of the colon modal haplotype, which is J1P58. So if we can find a mitochondrial lineage here, should be a mitochondrial one as well somewhere. And then they tried to insist that Neanderthals came before the Africans, but Neanderthals have more in common with Eurasians and not Africans. Okay, what's this? This is mitochondrial. This might show it a little bit. Yeah, this is mtDNA. Again, there's the L1, 2, and 3. And then it's the M, C, D, G, and then which is missing, it's missing some haplotube. And then it's the N, A, N, I, and W. So they have the N and the I kind of linked together. And, well, it doesn't show it here, but the A, X, and W are linked together. And then it starts the R lineage, which is still all Semitic, but it's R through K here, which is the European haplogroups. And Middle Eastern as well, because the H is Middle Eastern. I mean, Semitic, in the Jewish population as well. Okay, there is another chart that shows the mitochondrial lineages, the way they're connected, but it's the inverse of the way the Y chromosome is connected. So it can't be out of Africa because, okay, here's a co-modal haplotype showing frequency 50%, right? Ashkenazi co-modal haplotype, non-Ashkenazi co-modal haplotype. So even the non-Ashkenazi co-modal haplotype is like 40%. Of the JP58, J1P58. No other haplotype comes close to being the Cohen modal haplotype. Even though there's people saying they're Cohen, they have an E. It's not nearly as high. The E123, not nearly as high. Well, E123 is Egyptian in the Mediterranean, in the Levant area. That's why that's so high, because it's Egyptian in the Levant area, but it's only hardly 10%. The G is Assyrian, not very high, not very high. Then you have the J, other J lineages, other J lineage, Q lineage, which is the Medes in the Jewish population. R, very low, R, still low, and other haplogroups, not even close. But if the J1P58 is 50% of the people claiming to be Cohen are have this marker. So that's a huge signal for and the only other one that comes close, not even close, 20% is just another J410. So that identifies J as being descendant of Aaron, descendant of Levi, descendant of Israel, descendant of Abraham, descendant of Arpachshad. So that identifies the IJ lineage as that of being Arpachshad or Arphaxad. And again, this is the J1P58, and it's, well, zoom in, Jewish, and then it goes, but it's still the same lineage. So anybody having this J1P58 is identified as being of the Cohen model haplotype. And of course, this M267 is not all of J1. There's more J1 than that. There's the I2, J2, and this is only the M172. Like I said, there's more J2 than M172, but this M172 appears to be descendants of David and Solomon. So right here, these two lineages could be the difference between descendants of David and Solomon. There's JA2A, JA2B. There's two separate lineages from there, possibly separating David and Solomon. Who knows? But I'd have to do some more investigation, probably. So, yeah, this is interesting here because here's Denisova Cave up here. Denisova Cave's way up here. The people have most in common with the Denisovan found are people in this area of South Asia. And the people of South Asia, of course, are a mix of Eurasian and Hamitic because of the C and the D in the area. Of course, early on, the C was up here and the D was up here as well. So I forget which is more likely, whether C or the D, or maybe even both make up what is called Denisovan. And the other thing is look at, this map doesn't show it so well. Yeah, and this is showing something different. This is mixing it with Neanderthal. So they're saying Neanderthal, but there's other charts like this that are a little bit different. And because this one's mixed with the Neanderthal, it says between Denisovan and Neanderthal. So it's either Denisovan or Neanderthal, and it's not showing the difference between African and Denisovan, because there is a difference between African and Denisovan, or African and Neanderthal. Uyghurs are Judaic along the Silk Road. Sephardic Jews, J1, J2, basically half of the population. G is Assyrian, R1B, R1A is descendants of Gomer, E1B1 is Egyptian. Q is the Medes, because in the book of Esther, the Medes became Jews. I, of course, is the tribe of Dan. T is the Mediterranean descendants of Javan, mostly of Tarshish, mostly descendants of Tarshish from Iberia. Let's see what we got here. Might run across it one of these days. Here we go. Here's one. So this is going to show the mitochondrial lineages because you have the L, 1, 2, 3. Then you have the M, which is Eurasian. So this M goes this way, goes to F and M, Z, C, and a D, and a G. So C, D, G, Z, and E somewhere are of the M lineage. But then when it goes to the N lineage, you have the I, the W, let's see, the X. Yeah, this is, the N goes this way. Oh, yeah, here it is. The N goes this way to the N here, the X and the A. And the A goes to America, but it doesn't go through this Bering Strait. It crosses Africa. And then you have the X. So the A and the X, but I was thinking the W was part of that too, but maybe not. Because I thought I saw another one showing, because sometimes it's incorrect here. Sometimes it shows something different. Then you have the R. The R is separate. Remember the R was separate. Then you have the H and the U and the TUV and the J and K. And of course, this is mitochondrial lineage. So you have the N goes to R and the R goes to there. And this is the B separate. Remember the B crossed the Pacific Ocean to America? But it comes from the R lineage, according to this. Yeah. So the B is from Middle Eastern Semitic mitochondrial lineage, but it separates from these other ones because it's a group of people that went down here looking for the land of gold, going to the Philippines, and ended up this B crossed the Pacific Ocean, but the Y chromosome didn't survive very well in South Asia. But there was a group of people that left here was looking for the land of gold, Israelite people. So that explains the B lineage in the Pacific, the South Pacific and the Pacific Ocean. So you have the L, the M, and the N, or the major lineages. Then the N splits up between the R, which goes into Europe, and the NA and X. And the A goes to America, which is this is the Semitic lineage, but then the X is part of this lineage, goes into Europe. I guess the W might be a different one, but it depends on how accurate this information is. And of course, you have in America, you have the A, B, C, D, and X. And the X, of course, is in the Great Lakes region as well, especially. But most of these didn't cross over through Bering Strait. They crossed over from Africa, as we have seen. They crossed over from Africa to Central America. And if anyone has any doubts, we could just show that with a Q haplogroup. Well, we have to go to the Y chromosome again. But anyway, let's see what's going on here. Oops, I forgot to take it off. Ancient Israelites mtDNA. Well, that was what I was talking about. Okay, so Koreans and Manchurians got N9B mtDNA. That means they are the descendants of Semitic mothers from the Middle East, maybe Jewish. Well, yes. As a matter of fact, the Uyghurs have J2 as their major Y chromosome. The majority of the people that are Uyghurs have a Judaic Y chromosome. So it's very likely that the N9B, if that was also Semitic, would be in the population. Well, it is Semitic, but it could be from Jewish people who traveled down the Silk Road all the way to where the Uyghurs are today. Means that they are descendants of Semitic mothers from the Middle East, maybe Jewish. Okay, let's go back here real quick, and we'll go to the Q haplogroup. I don't know if there's a Q. Which one? I forgot which one to look at, but we'll just go the Q. The whole kit and caboodle, which is the Medes. It's the haplogroup of the Medes, who were at the time were in Asia, were representing Asians, along with the Asian mitochondrial DNA and with the Semitic DNA that Madai has to marry. Air loading tree. Air loading tree. Well, let's try again. Because it's supposed to work. So yeah, so the A lineage is a lineage that accompanies the Q wherever it goes, and it's also what was it, the X? I thought it was the X and the W. Yeah, it was the X. The X lineage also branches off from the A as well. Okay. A little patience, maybe. Yeah. Well, I'm going to have to, here it goes. I'm going to have to shut this down because the computer's shutting down. But let's go back in time in case anybody doubts the Atlantic crossing of the Q into America. Again, the A does the same thing. The C and the D do the same thing, and some even the W and the X crossover as well. But you can clearly see from this how the Medes, as soon as the Medes arrived in Lydia, you have an Atlantic crossing to Central America off the coast of Africa, and it spreads out from Central America. And it's the same pattern that the A mitochondrial has the same pattern, the C mitochondrial has the same pattern, and the D mitochondrial has the same pattern. So it's clearly an Atlantic crossing of the Medes when they when they encountered at the same age or date when they encountered the Lydians. So again, as soon as they encounter the Lydians, right there, they encounter the Lydians in Anatolia. As soon as they encounter the Lydians, they traveled through the Mediterranean, off the coast of Africa, straight to Central America, and spread out from there. And it's the same pattern with the mitochondrial DNA of A, C, and D. So it was an Atlantic crossing of the Medes, not a crossing through Beringia or Bering Strait through Alaska. Other lineages did cross through there, but the majority, as you can see, passed right through here like this and spread out from Central America. So there should be no quarrels, no gripes, no crying. As a matter of fact, they even crossed back over the other way before they crossed through Beringia. So watch closely up in the corner, the right-hand corner. Right here, you have a crossing. Oops. You have a crossing from Alaska to Asia before there's a crossing from Asia to Alaska. So the lineage crosses from Alaska to Asia before it crosses from Asia to Alaska. That's the Q haplogroup. Of course, there are lineages that do cross from here. Obviously, that would be the Inuits. They were hunting seals or something, probably, and they crossed over. So that's about that. That's good enough for now. I guess we've been going at it long enough. See, the Medes were ancient Iranian people, as well as ancestors, modern Kurdish, and people who live in northwestern portions of present-day Iran. There's not a whole lot of Q in Iran. I mean, we could look at see how much, but the Medes kind of they were moved up into like North Iran area, but they were larger. The Persian people were largely this. They used to be the Medes and the Persians, which were probably Elamites and descendants of Madai and Elam and whoever else was in the area. They're called Persians. But today they've been displaced so much so that they are mostly Judaic today. Descendants of King David. I've been through that as well. I don't know if I can find the map. Here's another one here. This is clear. I think this is clear. I like this one better. So let's go. So this is clear here. You have the L, of course, M, and the N. So this one shows what I was saying pretty much more. The N splits off. You got the I, W, and the X, which this might not be correct either, but then you have the A and the Y, and simultaneously with the N, you have the R branch up here, which is the H, the T, the U, and the V, and the J. See, in the R branch, from the R branch, you have the B, which crosses over the Pacific to America. There's no indication that it crossed up here north. It's the only evidence is that it went out here in the Pacific and probably just crossed over from the Pacific islands. Okay, and then there's a P, which is this basically the branch off from the B, and the F is a branch off from the B as well. And of course, this is B, these are both B. So, so yeah, that's showing the Semitic lineage going through Asia is what it's showing, South Asia. So, and it branches off from the R. And both of these are Semitic, by the way. This A lineage, where's the A lineage? The A and the Y and the X, W and the I. This is, and the N. This is still Semitic too, but it's a different Semitic branch. But it seems so. What I'm thinking is that because this is not clear showing very clearly, because the I didn't seem to be part of the X and the W. I think the I is separate from the X and the W might be separate from the X too, for that matter. But these are all together in Europe. This H, in fact, this is the majority of Europe, especially Western Europe, Southern Europe is H and U and V and T and J. 95%. Well, including the X and the W, I guess, which is Semitic. And the Eurasian is the M lineage, which is the C, the Z, the G, and those lineages are Eurasian, or the Eurasian lineages. So it's L, M, and N, which goes from African to Asian to Semitic. But then in the Y chromosome, it goes from African to Semitic to Eurasian. So that defeats the out of Africa right there, because all the lineages are existed simultaneously. So what was I looking for again? Looking for the Iranian DNA. Okay, this here shows Sephardic Jewish DNA. So this is not DNA of the area, but it's Sephardic. And what's conspicuously missing out of here is the T. There's no T in these populations here. Zero T. It's not even listed. So that's, to me, is very telling that T is not even close to being Semitic. So maybe somebody can relay that to Dr. Nathaniel Jensen. So here we do have the T, and the only place you do have the T is where Tarshish is here in Iberia. So that's a T. So that probably does explain the T in the population of the Braganza Jews. But the Belmonte Jews, which seems to be more Judaic than anything, doesn't have the T in their population. So we have the Braganza Jews that do have the T, and the Belmonte Jews in Portugal that don't have the T, and then you have the Portuguese host population. So I believe the T in the Jewish population is largely due to the descendants of Tarshish, because of this particular branch of Braganza Jews that have the T in their population right there. That's really the only place where you can find the T. But of course, I might be in the Ashkenazi Jews as well. But among Jews. These are secular Jews. Here's Ashkenazi Jews. You have 3% in the Ashkenazi Jewish population. 48% J. Egyptian, Assyrian, Gomer, European, descendant of Javan, Medes, Madai, and the I is Dan and Asher, which separated from the population early on. They were the first ones to leave. Here you have the X in two places. You have the X in the Great Lakes region, and you have the X in the Middle East. And this one shows it even better. You have the X2A in all of these tribes here. Ojibwe in Ojibwe in Canada, Algonquin, Mississippi, Mississauga, Potawatomi, Odawa, Chippewa, and Oji Cree. All these tribes have the X2A. These are all color-coded for the different tribes that have the X2A. And lo and behold, you have the X2A, not X2-A, mind you, but the X2A in the Galilee population in Galilee, which is Phoenicia right here. There's Tyre right there. This is Phoenicia. In case you can't see it, Phoenicia. So could be that the Phoenicians had trade with this part of the world, and this lineage here that was brought over from the Mediterranean to the Great Lakes region may have come back here if they have it written correctly. This is X2A here, this is X2A, but the European X2A is not X2A, it's X2-A. But if this is X2A, it means it came from here, if they have it coded correctly. But I think that's what they're showing there. Okay, Denisovan. Again, Denisovan cave up here. Neanderthal. Heat map up here. Heat for Neanderthal. And of course, these vary slightly, but you can see it's very cold here. It's neither Neanderthal nor Denisovan, but of course down here it would be a mix of Hamitic and Eurasian, which you can see from other maps. Here's a good map. It's showing only the Denisovan allele frequency. Denisovan cave is here. This is a good map because it's showing only the Denisovan DNA. So the heat in the for Denisovans is here. And what's conspicuously cold is the Semitic region here. The Semitic region, which even goes up into Scandinavia, is conspicuously cold for Denisovan DNA. But it kind of shows that it's a mixture of African and Eurasian up here. So this light green up here shows Eurasian. This light green here is African. Denisovans are a mixture of Eurasian and African, which makes a lot of sense. Okay, sooner or later I'm going to run across, here's the 16 ancient civilizations. We got 7 sons of Japheth, 4 sons of Ham, and 5 sons of Shem. Okay, coming close to Iranian DNA. Here's Iranian DNA right here. So this is today's Y chromosome, today's Y DNA of Persians, Iranians. Okay, so we can see that there's G of Assyrian. That's and part of this G could be the Jewish population, anyways. You have the R1A and R2 is to be expected. You have the T, which is you know descendant of Job, and that's pretty high there. But again, that's not that far out of the way from the other descendants of Jamin, which are Elisha, Dodanim, and Kittim, plus the fact that they may have accompanied the Jewish population as well. But look at the amount of J2. And this is J2 M172, but the J2 all goes from here all the way over here, which is a good 1/3, well, it's J1, J2, but it's a good 1/3 of the population. Of course, some of this could be Arabic, some of it could be Israelite. That's why we need to identify the difference between Arabic and Judaic or Israelite. But this might be the Judaic. This M267. I gotta double check, or the Israelite. But anyways, there's more than I've shown this before. There's more than just J2 M172, which is 20%. There's also M322, S51, M319, and M158. But you put them all together, actually the J2 is almost, the J2 by itself is almost 1/3. If you include the J1, it's close to half of the Persian population, which is really interesting. So it's all Abrahamic. Plus, you consider the fact that some of this Q was in the Jewish population and some of this G was in the Jewish population. And here you have some H from Elamites. And who else was there? Assyrians, G from Assyrians, and even some F from Lydians or Arameans, probably Arameans. And the Egyptian, some Egyptian there. More Assyrian over here. And some of these, which the Jewish population has, I think it's a G2. Some of these G2s here are in the Jewish population. I forget which one of these is actually a Judaic lineage in the Jewish population, one of these G2s. So you have virtually half of the Persian population today is directly descended from Abraham. Even almost half is directly paternally descended from Abraham in the Iranian population today, which is the most ironic thing ever, considering current events. But there you have it. I don't make this stuff up. I don't make this stuff up. I don't personally believe there was existence of Neanderthal nor Denisovans. It was not biblical, or you can say they were mixed with angels, human beings before the flood. No, actually, they're found in sediment layers, so they have to have been after the flood. I mean, they're actually buried in the sediment layers. So they're not even buried by the sediment layers, they're buried in the sediment layers. So it's kind of hard to say they existed before the flood. So Neanderthals, as far as I can tell, were Eurasians, just Eurasians way, way, way back in time. So it's a DNA sample from Eurasians far back in time, which is the reason why it's a bigger genome than what we have, and they had better eyesight, larger mind, better hearing, stronger frame, everything. And we're just a skeleton of what they used to be because of the degradation since that time. And the Denisovans are clearly a mixture of Eurasian and Hamitic, as far as I can tell. So I guess that's about it. Sorry for covering up the pictures over here. Let's put it back up. Here we go. Anyway, look at that. Half is directly, almost half is directly paternally descended from Abraham. That's the Persian population today. And of course, this varies throughout the region too. This is not, just one thing all throughout all of Persia. It changes depending on where you are in Persia. Some places are probably even more than 50% descended from Abraham. Anyway, so that's good. I thank everybody for participating. And yeah, God bless everybody. Have a nice week. And Shavua Tov. God bless everybody. Take care.